So I had more questions and I realized the answers were going to take longer than I expected. So I decided to go ahead and make a question and answer video that I'll be posting on YouTube. So hopefully that will answer everyone's questions. I've got my jar here with all the questions. Just gonna mix them up and we'll see what's first. Alrighty. First question, what training methods do I use / who do I recommend? I would say I learned the most through Training Through Trust. That's Doug Mills. He's up in Canada, but has an entire online training program that I went through that for 2 years. I would say that's where I learned the most from. And then other than that, I would say Ryan Rose. That's who my sister learned from primarily. And I would say those are the two I learned from the most. I've learned through lots of different trainers, books online, like Monty Roberts. Let's see, who else? John Lyons, Clinton Anderson, some. I mean, I think an important part of horse training is learning a lot and then deciding what works best for each horse. But I would say Ryan Rose and Doug Mills, Training Through Trust, are the ones that I look up to the most and recommend the most. Alrighty. How do you start a horse loping under saddle successfully? I would say, well, when I'm starting a horse under saddle, the first thing I do is I get them to lope in the round pen or on a line before I try it under saddle. And I would say that the key to being successful is in the beginning, rewarding and giving a release as soon as they pick up the lope smoothly. That way they know what it is you're looking for. And then the same, obviously you build on that and they'll be able to maintain the lope longer as they're looking for that release of pressure that they know will come when they've done the right thing. And it'll be the same thing under saddle. Once they are walking and trotting, you'll just ask them to speed up. And for me, as soon as they pick up that lope, if they don't try to buck or anything, in which case I'll either circle them down or keep them moving through it. But if they just pick up the lope, even if it's a little rushed or they're unsure, the first time they do it each side, I'm going to give them a release. I'm going to pet them, let them know that's what I was looking for. And then from there, you can build on getting them to pick it up smoother and maintaining that longer. And doing it that way, I've yet to have a horse that hasn't been able to lope pretty good within a few rides where we loped. All right. Do I ever use whips or spurs? I would say, short answer, yes, I would / I will. I do. I actually have not ridden with spurs yet. In my opinion, spurs are really good for creating finesse as a horse gets better under saddle. And with the fact that most of my horses I end up selling while they're still green, I don't think you really need spurs at that point. I think they're still in the basics of learning how to be under saddle, and they can do all that just as good without the spurs. And so I don't ride with spurs. I actually haven't yet. But with Aowen, my personal horse, and wanting to get her to a higher level of training, I think that if I get spurs and start riding her with those, I can be able to give her more precise cues, which can help her to respond. Just have a clear understanding of what it is I'm asking for. Once she knows more of the quote fancier stuff, it'll end up looking smoother and she won't be confused if I can give her clear commands like that. But again, when a horse is just green or whatever, I'm not going to be using spurs on them. when it comes to a riding whip or crop, whatever you want to call it, I do use those. I use those both in hand and under saddle. I found that that is a great way to add pressure without having to pull on the lead rope or the reins, etc. And I always start this on the ground first before riding with a crop under saddle. And it's not just, oh, hitting the horse to get them to go. That's not how it works. It's just a cue that you can build on. So the whole point of using an extra aid or whatever is to get to the point where you don't need it. So it's for earlier in training where you have a horse that you wanted to get softer. You can keep your hand soft on the rein if you can back up your command on the rein by adding pressure with the crop. Important thing is, just like with the reins, you have to be fair with your pressure. So that means you start off very, very light and you give releases for when they respond to that light pressure, and that's how you get your horse softer. Another benefit of riding with a crop or a whip is that's how you can give cues where you can end up riding bridleless. For Beowulf, actually, he was, I guess, just better at this. And so I was able to ride him without halter or lead rope, bridle, whatever, because I could give him cues with my feet and with the crop to get him to do exactly what I wanted. So I think those kind of extras can be great training aids and tools. I think that obviously they can't do anything to the horse themselves. I feel like they can be misused, or they can end up being a very good benefit to what you are trying to do and can end up creating a horse that is softer and more willing. Alrighty. I think this may be one of the most asked questions at this point. When am I getting my new horse? So for anybody who doesn't know, I was planning on getting this new surprise horse on Saturday, and about a half hour into our trip, our truck broke down. And so we ended up changing batteries and the alternator on the side of the highway in the cold freezing rain, which was an interesting adventure. But we're still having a few issues with the truck. The truck seems to be doing good, but Dad wants to give it a thorough check over before I take it for a longer drive. And so I'm planning on actually having somebody pick up my horse and bring it here. Hopefully it'll be tomorrow, which would be December 3rd. There's a very slight chance that that's happening this afternoon. I really doubt that though. And if not, it'll be in the near future, hopefully sooner than later, because I'm paying for board as it's until it gets here. But yeah, I'm super excited about this new exciting adventure, and I'll be making an entire post when it gets here. Yeah, it's exciting. So hopefully tomorrow, short answer. Alrighty, at what age did I start writing? I guess I do have a lot of new subscribers on YouTube, followers on Facebook, so I can just give a quick rundown of my life training journey. I started taking writing lessons when I was about 6. We lived in Louisiana at that point. Took writing lessons when we lived in Louisiana for a while, and then when we moved to Illinois, I took writing lessons there as well. When we lived in Illinois was also when we got our first horse and 2 ponies. The horse was primarily my older sister's, so I only rode her occasionally. But I did, the pony we got was trained to pull a cart before, and I taught her to be ridden under saddle. Great thing for an 11-year-old to do. And then after that, when we moved to Tennessee, I got my own horse at the age of 13. He was a Tennessee walking horse who was labeled as beginner safe, and he was beginner safe. He was not beginner rideable in the sense that he would listen to a beginner. And so we had many riding days where I was just very frustrated. All he wanted to do was stand in the barn, and I did not have the strength or training knowledge to work through that. So I would say working through that with him was really what got me into being interested in actually training horses. At that point, I started watching videos and trying to figure out what I could do to learn more. And then my sister got, probably a couple years later, she got a Mustang that she went to a Ryan Rose training thing where they worked with Mustangs, and between that and watching Extreme Mustang Makeover videos, I really fell in love with Mustangs. And then the day before I turned 18, I picked up my first Mustang for the 2022 Extreme Mustang Makeover in Fort Worth. I picked up Rendon, who was a probably 8 or 9 month old Mustang gelding, and absolutely fell in love with the training process. I definitely had several days early in training with him where I did not know what I was doing and ended up in tears, but wouldn't have changed it. Like, one of the best experiences. So after that, I really decided I wanted to continue training horses, specifically Mustangs, and I wanted to know more about it. And at that point, let's see, it was that December that Traction, my first horse, died. He died in December, and so all I had then was a about 12, 15 month old Mustang, and I wanted to get better at riding and training, so I convinced Mom and Dad to let me get an X-Race horse. So December 31st, I got Timber. At that point, I had already bought my next Mustang, but because it was on the online auction, I wasn't going to be picking him up until January, and I wanted to get better at riding myself before I started a horse under saddle, because that was my plan with the new Mustang. So in December, I brought Timber home and started riding her. And then in January was when I got Rocket, who was my first adult Mustang to work with, as well as the horse I was going to start under saddle. At that point was also when I enrolled in the Training Through Trust online program, and really spent hours every day, all day, every day, just learning more, working with horses more, just pouring into this. So that was what I did. Since then I've just fallen in love with working with Mustangs. At this point, I've owned 20 horses. I've trained and sold multiple. I've competed in several Mustang makeovers and just have fallen in love with it more and more. So to put it very brief, I started riding when I was like 6 or 7. And then a side note, my very first horse, Attraction, was the horse I got when I was 13, and the only horse I rode from the age of 13 to 18, almost 19. And he was, honestly, I don't even know what it was. He had something wrong with him that we could not figure out what it was, that made it so he could not lope, and he also did not know how to gait. So I didn't really get much better at riding during that time, since it was just walking around, occasionally trying to get him to gait, or him doing this very, very awkward trot. And I literally loped him less than 10 times in those 5 years that I had him. So that was when I got Timber, an X-Race horse, and that was my next experience of loping, galloping, was on a racehorse. So that was definitely probably not the wisest idea, but if you've been following me for a while, you know it kind of goes in line with how I do things. Alrighty, next question. How do I pick a horse? Person who wrote that question added on that I always seem to get very, very chill and awesome horses. I do think I have been blessed with getting amazing horses. There have been ones that have definitely been harder than others and had their struggles, but I feel like a lot of it comes down to two things. Obviously there are horses that are a lot harder than others and are going to take more time and training. I've had some of those. Tariel, for one, which I haven't dedicated a lot of time working with her. In all honesty, I've just been busy with other horses, but I've had her since April, and at this point, like, she just knows the basics of groundwork and still can't be turned out in a large field because she won't let me catch her. But overall, I have been blessed with such amazing horses, and I think it comes down to two things. One, I pray when I get the horses, honestly. I will admit there's been times when I, quote, tested God and had a fleece or whatever. I can think of time in particular with Dakota because I know you shouldn't buy for color, and he was listed as only 14-1, so smaller than I wanted, and I prefer the older horses. I honestly prefer not to start a horse under saddle and ride them till they're 4. He was only 3, even though he would be almost 4 when I picked him up. And so I prayed. I said, hey God, if I'm supposed to get this horse, can I please be the only bid on him? And despite the fact that he was in gorgeous paint and like would have been a very desired horse, normally most auctions several $100s, if not over $1,000, I was the only bid on him. And so that was a sign to me that he was the one I was supposed to get for the Mustang Magic. So he will be available in January for anybody who's not been following that journey. So I'd say that's definitely a huge part of it. Inviting God into everything I do and the decisions I make has really been a key part of everything I've done, and I know that's why I am so blessed in what I do. And then I would say the other part is knowing a lot when it comes to training, and so you can adapt to what each horse needs. You can't be stuck in, oh, this is how I have to do this is how I train. You have to be willing to learn new things, adjust to meet the horse's need, meet the horse where they're at, and understand the limitations of different horses, what they may struggle at, what they may excel at. And obviously there are some things that every horse needs to know, but being able to work with them where they're at and adapt to meet them, I would say, is definitely a key to success when it comes to working with horses. I would say also, on a side note to that, especially with Mustangs, just because you don't know how the rounding up process affected them. Some horses, no big deal, doesn't affect their training at all. Other ones, that really does have an effect on how they look at people, how they see people, and so being able to meet them where they're at and adapt to how they learn is a crucial part of that. All right. How do you prepare for stranger interactions, vet, farrier, etc.? I would say it comes down to overdoing it myself as well as enrolling the help of my siblings. So when it comes to the farrier, for one thing, all of our horses are barefoot, and so I do most of their trimming myself. Just with the amount of horses I have, it doesn't make sense to try to have a farrier come out and do them all on a regular schedule. If one really needs adjustment, or if I'll be selling them, I will try to have a farrier come out and give them a professional trim per se. But I had a farrier teach me to the point where I can keep up with the rest of our horses' hooves. But when it comes to having a farrier do it, having done it myself and gotten them used to all the tools, that definitely helps. But then I don't make it easy per se. I act like I'm somebody else, or I exaggerate. So I may hold their hoof up longer than would be necessary. I may not be babying them super gentle with how I do it, because I know that's not how everyone does it. I may, just various things like that. Same comes for any other vet experience. Or a chiropractor. I'm gonna exaggerate how they do it so that when somebody else does it, they're like, oh, it's no big deal. And then another part is I definitely enroll the help of my siblings. They get to put my Mustangs to the test, because I figure if a Mustang can do it with a 8 or 11-year-old, then they're gonna have no problem doing it with somebody stronger and more experienced. So I definitely would say those are the two crucial things for getting them ready for strangers. And then, the more you can get them used to new people to the point where they don't see people as strangers. Obviously, that depends on the horse. Aowen still doesn't love new people. And so I've relied on her training more to get her fine when other people are doing things with her. Whereas a horse like Dakota, who may not be as far along in the training process, but loves people, you can kind of find the balance of, are they going to be fine with it because they're fine with people, or are they going to be fine with it because they know the training? And so I would say definitely finding the balance of that when you're preparing them to do things with new people. What do I recommend for someone starting a horse under saddle for the first time? Is a Mustang easier, or a horse you've had since birth? I really can't speak to the second part as much. I've never had a horse since birth that I've been able to start under saddle. I got close to that with Rendon. I got him when he was 8 or 9 months old, and this past spring I was supposed to have started him under saddle. He was on the smaller side, so I was going to wait until he was older. But he actually died in a tragic accident on Christmas Day last year. So didn't get to do that. And then the only other baby horse I've had, or I guess I have trained a couple. I've ended up selling them once before I started them under saddle. In my experience, when you do have a horse that long, you can definitely get them fine with more things. Introducing maybe not a saddle, but blankets and things around their belly at a young age will definitely have an effect on how they see things later in life, to the point where it's just normal for them. And so that would definitely be a benefit of that. But when it comes to Mustangs, that's what I do definitely have experience doing. And I would say you definitely, working with a Mustang, you're going to have experience working with Mustang, and know, especially for the first time, that it is going to take longer. And then I would say for a first timer, the biggest thing is going to be over preparing the horse and taking your time. For example, my first horse that I started under saddle, I got him in January, and I did not put a first ride, and he was an easy Mustang, and a small Mustang, only 14 hands. And while I sat on him, leaned over him and stuff, like I could do that in February, I did not put a first ride on him until May. Part of that was because I was doing a colt starting challenge, but it was also because I wanted to make sure that he was ready for it. And that doesn't mean I just waited and went slow. I did everything to make sure this horse would not have an issue with it. I taught him to line up to everything. I taught him to get used to a person leaning over him everywhere. He was fine with a person jumping up and flopping against him. I could slide over him every way, go under him, be all around him, put anything on him. I could completely wrap him up in ropes, and he was fine with it. I could put one around his rib cage, go around behind him, around the front, tie him up, make him move around. He was fine with it. So I would say that's key to when you're doing a first one, is just get it to the point where they are so set up for success and so used to all these crazy things that when you just slide on their back, get up on them, and ask them to walk, it's so easy. It's nothing new. They're just ready for it. So yeah, that's what I would say when it comes to that. This video has been pretty long. I may end up, we'll see. So hopefully that answers, that's all the questions I have. If anybody has more questions, I can definitely do a part 2. I may end up splitting this, we'll see. If this is labeled part 2, you'll know I split it. So yeah, I can definitely do these more in the future, especially during the winter time when I do not want to be outside. So yeah, definitely reach out if you have any questions. If you need help with anything else, feel free to shoot me a message or whatever. I definitely want to be a help and encouragement to other people who are getting into Mustangs or getting into horse training. It's, other than God and family, it's the best part of my life. So I want to be a help to others. So thank y'all so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.